Hello, welcome to day 186 of 365 days towards racial change. My name is Tomlin Nybeck. We are here talking about black issues in America, how we're getting along, how this skin color has such an incredibly large impact on what's going on today and how we live and navigate here through America. Oh my goodness. Did I forget that we are just past our halfway point? I wanted to make a kind of a celebration of that, but I kind of missed it. We're a couple days past the halfway point. But in light of the holidays, 4th of July, I don't know how the lighting is, if my fireworks will display. But yeah, thanks for hanging in there. We are past the halfway point. We're going to come up into the home stretch in a couple weeks here, a month or two. Let's see how we do. Can we hold on? Day 186. All right. So, like I always say, I start out, wondering where America is mentally on this issue, black and white. And that's fundamentally the issue. That's the roots of the nation. The Native Americans, they just were simply moved aside, physically murdered and beaten back to the Stone Age by the European white power. But they are named, because they are named explicitly and specifically in the constitutions as certain recipients of rights. They've kind of gotten along well, and while they still have issues, definitely in America, they have casinos and some land grants and some things going on. They have exclusive autonomous rights within certain territories in America, and as they grow, they're going to, participate and come back strong. I see actually resurgence of the Native American way and life and people. Someday I am, believe it or not, I have a very heavy Native American influence in my bloodline, the Lenape Indians on the East Coast. I'm very much a part of that nation. Uh, we're all, sex is the perpetrator here. No matter what color it is, the humans find a way to get past racial color boundaries over sexual issues. I got here from some sex, We have this big melting pot, but I'm not going to go into that. But yeah, that might not look it, but I have a strong Lenape Indian, Native American influence in my bloodline. But I'm mostly talking about black issues because, see, it's the color of my skin that's caused me to ponder, feel angst, to want to understand this America, this system. So having said that, I'm interested in the black mind. Is it still enslaved? Does it still process, move about, navigate the American system as a slave, as an outsider, non-competitive, things like that? I would say, well, let me tell you this experience. I've been applying for promotion and a more position at work. Been denied twice. Not overly jammed up about it because I got some other things coming up. Not being more busy at work doesn't hurt me at all. you know, it's not, and there's no real evidence to say that I'm being excluded because of my color. Now, on that note, in the interview process, I'm asked these questions, but they're questions answerable by a person who lives a certain way in America. You know, and I'm seeing, you know, it's one of those things where you may have this in your life as well, where you want to get in position where you're underneath power at this point and you can't do much. You just kind of go with it. And if you choose to engage it, then you rise up in the system. Then you get to a space where you can uh, make some changes. So that's kind of what I see my potential in this. If I ever get further enough further enough up, I would say, look, you're not you're not making the right distinction in these questions. These questions need to be more accessible and their answers more uh, demonstrative of more inclusion. It's a long thing to talk about, but you hear it like in education. Dr. Anderson talks about it. I talk about it. How this white system, created by whites, administered by whites, for whites, just goes on and on. It can't see itself. Big blind spot, and it just expects everyone else to come along in its wake mentally. And I'm seeing, as I continue this project, I see the problems with some of that. Now, also, that's the black mind. White mind's expectation of favor, privilege. We talk about this white, European white system, white values of exploitation, domination, all these things, that we have to legislate inclusion and diversion is evidence that it does not naturally exist within the system. The system it's like an electrical circuit. There's a beginning point and end point, and it doesn't work uh, if it's static. If it's not moving, it doesn't work. It actually crashes, regresses. But to sustain it, it's got to work. And for it to flow, it's got to flow from the bottom to the top and back down again, just like electricity. The white mind, the mind of America. My second big burdens for financial literacy. I'm not reading. Well, I'm reading a book called Creature from Jekyll Island. Very important book, but it's very dense and behind the scenes of money. I don't think you have to go that far to be effective in the American system, but you want to understand money. You need to understand how hard your money needs to outlive you and outwork you in the future, because in a very real sense, from the time you're conceived or even born, we'll say, not to mess with that debate, you inherit tens of thousands of dollars worth of debt just because you're born into the American system. And how do you alleviate that? You never come out from under it. It grows and grows. It's because our ancestors have borrowed from the future in this way, and it compounds and all that. And it's not hopeless because we still live. I still got a few greenbacks in my wallet. My uh, my investment account grows. I consistently stash away $5 a day in there and all this stuff. I'm still moving and functional. Get to go on the first ever vacation in my life and stuff. Too bad I had to wait till this got gray. I would have liked to go before that. White people go before it gets gray consistently multiple times. I won't go into that. But financially, I need to understand. You know, now that I'm understanding financially, um, uh, accessing the white system much more better. Which comes to something we are uh, going to be touching on the next couple of days. Not explicitly, entirely, not a whole post devoted to it, but I'm seeing, especially since we've come through on the last day of chapter 19 of Uncle Tom's Cabin, uh, in these binaries that the white establishment presents. And they're not necessarily the values and the binaries of all other peoples. They take it for granted that these are the only ways. They keep presenting us with these choices. Well, Dr. Anderson and myself are like, I don't want to make any choice. I want to self-determine my space in the world. I was born here. I have certain rights just from being born here. You know that you've had this machine going that predates me that's really not my problem. That you do it and that you use me in it and don't allow me to participate fully and openly and to compete. You know, we're going to get into some of that discussion in a minute. Let me finish the introduction. Uh, on Dr. Anderson's note, we've been going through pretty big, long section on leadership. Took a break for the holidays. I think it was appropriate because everybody's distracted, and these topics on leadership are pretty dense, and need to wait till your fireworks wears off and stuff. Even I was distracted. Now, first, some books, resources of Dr. Anderson that we reference here is Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask, Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice, and Dr. Anderson's National Plan to Empower Black America, Powernomics. You can find Dr. Anderson at powernomics.com. Behind me, you see hashtag #US2 symbol. You find Black women supporting one another, having a conversation on Facebook. Check out Black Enough, BLAGGENUF, for kind of a Black Facebook experience. This is the World Wide Web. There are billions of sites and voices and blogs and vlogs and links and stuff out there. You can find your voice. If you can't find that needle in the haystack, do what I did. Start your own. While this is public, you can comment. I am I'm not going to explain a whole lot. I can't respond as freely as I want to now because of some technical stuff, but these videos are public. The notes in the description go with the video. You may find differences or more illumination, magnification on some points in the video versus the description and vice versa. I also have a private email list if you're interested in that, although they don't get, my private email list doesn't get anything different. They just get the text of the description and a link, YouTube link, to the videos. And we go from there. So it's no different. It's not a community like Facebook or LinkedIn, and Instagram, Snapchat. This view, click that, out this. There's just too many. I tried to keep up with all that. Almost drove myself crazy. Became ineffective in my own life. I wasn't following and pursuing my interests. I'm glad that there are so many humans into that. I got family members, that have started businesses and are doing well with all that. More power to them. I got some different things going on. Like I said, Uncle Tom's Cabin. We are in the last portion of chapter 19, Ophelia's experiences. So this is going to be part 4 of chapter 19. I think it's important because next chapter is actually some exciting stuff that I'm anxious to get into. I'm not going to be a spoiler alert. We're going to just finish off, spend a few minutes talking about the end of chapter 19. We've been through, chapter 19 is a very, and 18, is very philosophical points of view from the perspective of white slave ownership in the South. You know, we don't get, it's not the voice isn't a brutal voice or, how can I say, it doesn't reflect too much entitlement. It's St. Clair debating with Ophelia about this institution because Ophelia is now, she knows a slave's been murdered. Slaves are, they don't keep their space well, up to Ophelia's standards at least. Um, their slaves are undisciplined and all this stuff. So Ophelia is being challenged by this open type of segregation and abuse in the South. She's from the North, Vermont, the free North, we would say. But she's challenged though because St. Clair's like, you know, what we practice openly is something you conceal in the North. Your racism, your biases, your segregations, your exclusions are very much evident in the North. You just don't hold people captive and coerce and compel them to work for free. But they are still just as disadvantaged. They don't compete as well and as openly in the Northern system. You know, St. Clair's like, we treat our blacks, because the blacks are his property. We treat our blacks better, even though we beat them to death, starve them to death. Right? Prue was beaten to death. Her last child starved to death, slow, agonizing death. Um, Even in light of our abuses, we still, uh, our consciousnesses are assuaged on 2 points. One, we dehumanize the blacks, so it's kind of okay to treat them like a horse or a chicken or a dog, you know, because they are. St. Clair's father says, you know, the black people are just some kind of missing link between base animals and white folks. You know, so we dehumanize them, and we exercise a level of altruism in the face of all this abuse that Miss Ophelia sees and experiences and has angst against. Uh, you know, she still can't get around that the blacks that do well are fed, kind of clothed, and kind of clothed, and kind of have some shelter. You know, um, yeah, there's field hands, and St. Clair's plantation is it's a kind of plantation you want to be in. We're going to see. I don't think this is much of a spoiler alert, but occasionally in the text you'll find slaves begging white people to be bought because their masters are just so brutal and apathetic and sadistic that they're like, please buy me. Your plantation has got to be better than what I'm going through here. Please buy me. In their desperation. So that they go, you know, you want to see that a little bit. I don't think that's a big surprise for anyone that we're going to find that in the text. So this debate has happened and gone on, you know. But what comes out is that this system, this European system, white system, is so binary. so given to bias in all and every level. It moves and it thrives and it goes, but it presents this binary, the set of one of two choices mainly. Oh, there's colors and shades and flavors and stuff, but essentially you got in America you're given a choice by the dominant system, and it's either conform, do well, resist and take your chances, you know. And I think St. Clair's story at the end about Scipio, the black African slave that he brought back to health after being shot, got him from his brother Alfred, nursed him to health, as an example, because Scipio is, his history since he got on the American shores from Africa is to run away, run away, run away, like Kunta Kinte and Roots, Alex Haley's Roots. And so that doesn't work. He eventually gets shot. St. Clair takes him, nurses him back to health. And so Scipio's like, so grateful that he's like, well, maybe I should just conform and just do well in the system. I can either run away and be chased by dogs and be shot, or submit. But see, that's the problem in America is we don't want this binary. I believe. Let me just say, I want to self-determine. I want to contribute to the common good and stuff. Some of the preamble stuff, and see that everybody's equally taken care of. But I want to equally compete as well. And that's not really the case in America, I think is what Harriet Beecher Stowe is trying to point out. You know. So Scipio submits, but he's submitting to a system that's not going to let him compete and equally participate. And it's not just because he's a slave either. It's because he's black. It's not just because the slave institution rules. Like this, the issue is always the color of the skin, whether there's outright slavery or whether it's insidious like the North. The problem is the skin color. All right, so we finish up the chapter, finish up this big long chapter 19, Tom's quarters. He's up there trying to write a letter to his family because promises were made to redeem him. After a time, after they save money and stuff like that, Eva pops up. And this is upstairs alone with a black man over the loft in, in America. Perfectly healthy and fine behavior. I'm not going to belabor where I want to go with that, but somehow America twisted that dynamic where it's really so. It's a challenging scenario to have, this older black man, devout, obviously pious, with the innocent little white girl. I could say some stuff about that in my experience, but we're not going to go into that too much today. I want you to look at some Shirley Temple and a guy by the last name of Johnson, tap dancer, and look at their interactions on the big screen, and you'll understand that Harriet Beecher Stowe's work informs that scenario that you're seeing there. That'll give you a good idea. Now, St. Clair comes up, So there's his little white daughter, older black man. They're very close. Harriet Beecher Stowe puts them in very close physical proximity because they're both trying to write this letter. Eva's just begun school, apparently, so she's got it. Tom is trying to remember these shapes and stuff, and they're both struggling. St. Clair says, look, you should let me help do this. Remember, St. Clair's the guy recognizes the humanity in everyone. It's not a problem that his little white girl is helping this black man write a letter to his family. At the end of the story, you find Ophelia, Harriet Stowe. She's pointing out that Ophelia is throwing herself into activity at the end of this chapter. My guess is that the Ophelia character, is processing uh, her ignorance, she's exposed in her northern hypocrisy. She's seeing this southern institution and this machine. She's always knitting. She's always busy about the house. She actually works probably harder than the field hands out on St. Clair's plantation. All the slaves are curious about Ophelia's activity at this time. It's very troubling to them. Uh, my guess is the knitting is she's processing murders, people being shot, violence down there, dehumanization of these people, overt dehumanization of these people in the South. She's just trying to put it together in her knitting. You know. That is the problem, you know. And I'll end today's post with this, you know. A big issue is the way white folks, like the way these two white folks sat around and debated issues and went along in their philosophical concerns and all that is just the way the white system does, you know. See, black folks, I know in my home, we didn't arm ourselves with accurate information about any people. We watched TV and enjoyed our dysfunction in the household. You know, the white people sit around, contemplate. They're always, I'm going to say, aggressive, assertive at forwarding their idea. And I've run into this in the workplace, you know. And when I resist it, the reaction is, how dare you resist my initiative, my policy? You know, well, it doesn't matter that you didn't know it. You don't have a say in it. You're black. You know, white folks sit around and create and forward agendas and get the best. You know, and so this, you know, Harriet, you know, Uncle Tom's Cabin. While we see Tom as maybe a central figure, uh, a loci of attention that brings various forces together and in proximity, it's always the white umbrella that has the exclusive voice, making decisions um, that um, declares what goes on in America. She, you know, in that sense, you know, she can't see herself. You know, it's her own blind spot. You know, she's bringing out great points. She's fighting hard for abolition and things like that. But she's still placing herself in that exclusive space. I'll tell you just, I don't think this is a big spoiler alert, but there's no big push for inclusion and you know, she's telling the sad story about some unfortunate black folks, uh, but she at the same time she still maintains her white superiority. in all this. It's just the blind spot. It's like me with my American morals talking about Iran or the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, portions of Africa, China, with my uh, American privilege, you know. I could write so well about the dysfunction of the others in my place of privilege. That's her. I'm not. It's not a criticism. It's more of an observation that how she devotes the mechanisms of decision making policy still rest in the hands of white folks. Uh, even though they are having this huge influence and impact on Black lives. I'm Tomlin's Nyback, day 186 out of the way, more than halfway there. A couple months will be coming to home stretch, coming into those big holidays towards the end of the year. Try to keep up. I've got a lot on my plate coming up. We're going to plug away. Going to dig down deep and grind hard because Black folks are hardy people naturally. Yes, we can. I forget whose slogan that was. I'll see you next time. Come back tomorrow for another episode of 365 Days Towards Racial Change. Have a good day.